there. I just can't deny giving me the best time. My body's shaking, shaking every time you get into my mind. Like a fire, burning wild in my heart. Take
Hey San, and welcome to Pixelpia. Tonight I will continue my series about podcasting. And the topic for tonight is different podcast formats. If you have missed my last episode where I talked about, what did I talk about? I talked about how to find your topic for your podcast. I will have a link down below. But today we are talking about different formats for podcasting. And there are many. I will mention 10 different ones. And the most popular is a solo podcast. One person doing everything. Remember, though, that when you start a podcast, you can, in the beginning, try out different format, and it might change over time as you get more used to podcasting. But many of us start as a single host podcast, a solo podcast, and that has many advantages. It is easier to produce, it's easier to edit, and it demands just a minimal equipment. All you really need is an audio recording app or on something on your computer and a microphone and some type of editing software. I will talk about equipment later on in this series, but it's the least required equipment heavy type of podcast, a solo podcast. But there are a couple of things that can be on the negative side. First of all, you are single handed responsible for everything. So it all falls on your shoulders. Secondly, you need to be very entertaining or educating and keep people interested to listen to one voice through the whole podcast. The second type or format is the co hosted podcast. And as it sounds like, there are usually two hosts that interact with each other and that make a more dynamic podcast than the solo podcast. It can be because they have fun together, or maybe they banter each other, tease each other, or it can be a podcast format where they actually represent opposite opinions about something. And the biggest advantage here is that you can share the workload. But it also demands a little bit more of your equipment. You probably need two mics, or maybe you're recording in distance, so you're recording at two different places. So both of you might need the equipment. The third type I want to talk about is interview podcast. This is a format that works very well if you have an informative expertise podcast, or if you are centered around famous people that you want to interview, or if it is a podcast about opinions. As a host for an interview podcast, there are a couple of things you need to be really good at. You need to be good at interviewing people, be able to come up with follow-up questions as the interview go along. And to do that, you need to be a really good listener. The hard part with this type of podcast is that you steadily need to find new guests to interview. And that can be a tricky thing to do. Excuse me. You also need to make sure that, especially if you interview people on distance, that the person you're interviewing have the correct equipment to record their side. And it is a little trickier to edit this, but it's usually a very interesting format to listen to. The next format is panel shows or round table shows. These consist of several people, not just two hosts. This can be 3, 4, or 5 people. If you have the right mix of people and they share the same interest, they don't have to share the same opinion, but the same interest for the topic, it can be a really dynamic form of podcasting. It can be tricky, especially in the beginning, until you find the rhythm of everybody included. It can also be tricky if this is something you do on the side of working full time, to schedule time for recording. And it demands much more of your equipment. Then we have 2 story type podcasts. We have the non-fiction story type podcast, and we have the fiction story type podcast. The non-fiction is very much like an audio documentary, and the absolutely most popular type of podcast in this format is real crime podcasts. They are almost a category all of their own. But there are other nonfiction narrative podcasts where you're telling a story about maybe science, real life stories of any kind. The problem with this podcast is that it takes a lot of research and preparing time. And you have to be a good storyteller to tell something about nonfiction and not become boring and just sound like you're reading a script. You need to be an excellent storyteller. And this is something you can develop as you move on. The nonfiction storytelling podcast can be a solo podcast or a co-hosted podcast, and maybe even a panel. The fiction storytelling podcast is something I recommend for people that are trying to become a writer. Instead of writing your book, you can express your book in the format of a podcast. As you write, you can read your writing to your audience. It's almost like an audiobook. You're telling your story, but in audio format instead of print. So those are the two story type podcasts. Then we have the type or the format that's called reused content. And say, for example, you have been a blogger for a long time, or you have created YouTube videos for a long time, and you want to find a new audience. You can reuse that material that you have collected as a blog or as in the video format, reuse that and create a podcast. Any type of creative in other media than audio can reuse the material they already have and create a podcast. And this can also be reusing other sources material. For example, a news podcast where you find news from a certain area or from all over the world, or other types of reused material where you don't have to create your own material each episode. And then we have hybrids. And just as it sounds, this is a combination. It can be, for example, a solo podcast that starts as a solo podcast with just me. And the second part of the podcast can be an interview, or I can even have a solo part, an interview, and a solo part within the same episode. Or I can have a solo podcast that moves into a panel podcast. I start with my part of the podcast, and then we invite a panel to discuss the topic. There are many combinations. We can have a storytelling that turns into a panel. You can combine all these formats any way you want. And then we have maybe the hardest format, and that is improv. Improv suits very well for maybe comics, maybe stand up or something like this. But the thing with improv is that all materials it is ad lib. You don't usually write the script or prepare anything. So it demands that whether you are solo or a panel or a co-host, that you are quick in your thinking. If you are co-hosting, that the two of you play off each other. Many times in an improv podcast, you might have a theme set or basic outline for what you're going to cover. But this is just like improv in real life. This is a very hard art to be good at. And the last format I want to talk about today is what's called tabletop or actual play podcast. And this is a very special format, and it's about tabletop role playing game. And what this is maybe you're playing, I don't know what role playing game, but if we go back in time when Dungeons and Dragons were very popular. If you are a group of friends playing Dungeons and Dragons, you can record as you are playing and create that into a podcast. So this is in real time gameplay that you record to create the podcast. And before I end this today, I will just shortly talk about audio podcast versus video podcast. All of these formats I have talked about can be either or both. The question when it comes to deciding whether you want to do audio only or you want to do a video podcast is, first of all, if you're doing a solo podcast, it's just up to you to decide. Do you want audio only or do you want audio and video? If you are with a co host or a panel, everybody must agree on the format. The problem can show up if you choose to do an interview podcast. Maybe not everybody you want to interview are prepared to be on video, but most people can say okay to an audio only podcast. There are advantages and disadvantages when it comes to your audience. An audio podcast you can usually listen to everywhere. You can listen on your phone, you can listen when you drive, you can listen everywhere. A video podcast, you have to sit down and consume the video either on a computer or on your mobile device, but you can't do it everywhere. The audio podcast requires less of equipment to start. And in my experience, it's much faster and easier to edit. The audio podcast only also seems like people usually have more patience when it comes to the length of your episodes. They seem to be more patience for just listening to audio than it is to consuming video. The video podcast has the advantage of the added visual. And either you do like I'm doing now, just sit there and talk, but you can always add B rolls and photos and other visuals to really get your point through. For my podcast, A Swedish Fika, I have chosen to start with both audio and video. And after my first season, which will be 15 episodes, I will evaluate and see if I'm going to continue with both or if one or the other will be how I continue. I hope this will help you when it comes to thinking about a format for your podcast. And now I'm going to continue by taking a look at the chat. And let me see. DJ, hi. Let me see. You say, I personally prefer the single host format for my own podcast. Animation Chat goes, check it out. Yeah, a little self promotion there. But I like the multi host too because you can bounce off the person. Exactly. Hi, not a great gamer. Welcome, welcome. Dorito, hello. So now we are at the point where Hi, Charlotte, welcome. Now I am at the point where I open up this live stream for everybody. And as always, we can talk about podcast format. If you have a question, you can ask them, or we can just hang out and chat. And for this, I actually need some background music. Let's see the volume here. Hold on to your ears. Let me stop the music for a second. And let's see. Oh, what was that? Let's see how this sounds.
Every day I'm looking for a way to return to the time when everything was easy to
And here
learn.
we have
When it started to
the
get
key
so
to the
serious.
stream link if
Building
you
up
want
an
to
illusion of a world full of
come up
fun.
and discuss this further or talk about anything else. Thank you, Granny. I hope it was. Have okay, Charlotte, you are first today.
Hi.
Hi,
DJ beat you.
but he's close second.
Close second.
Yeah, yeah.
He would be.
Hey guys,
Hi, DJ. How are you?
How
doing
are
good.
you?
How are you?
I'm fine, thanks.
Couldn't be better.
Hmm.
I'm pouring
Uh
my.
oh. And
Yeah,
Tia, did you get a hole in your lip there?
I don't
yeah.
know why it's leaking.
Oh,
Hmm.
that's
So,
what I used to tell my kids when they'd spill something. I'd say, "You got a hole in your lip?"
DJ,
Yeah,
you prefer the solo podcast?
yeah. Yeah, I do. Just because I tend to cold late at night, and it's bubble if it's just me that way. I'm not interrupted anyone else's sleep schedule except my own, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that is probably why that is the most popular type format of podcast is the solo because it's so much easier than anything else. You don't have to schedule time for recording with anybody else. You don't have to find guests. You don't have to. It's just you, and you do it on your own time.
Right.
And it's
Yeah,
so much easier to both record and to edit
Mm-hmm.
instead of having several speakers and make sure that everybody. We have trolls.
Oh,
I can't do intro, so,
And I
uh,
knew I should have gone into my YouTube. I'm on my way quickly here.
okay.
I know. I knew I should have had it on already. I don't know why I didn't. But
oh,
and
oh.
okay. I
Uh,
okay, they're gone. I know
okay.
I should have that. Let me throw that up on the
Oh,
others here so I have.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it before I started. That should have done that today, but
Yeah, well, it's something you're gonna get used to doing. So, uh,
All I can do from StreamYard is to block them. I can't report them, but I've done that now. They're
yeah,
blocked from here, but
I'm moving like echo. Never mind, it's gone.
oh boy. So, Granny, have you been thinking anything more about podcasting yourself since
I
yesterday?
have. I was talking to Poppy about it last night, and I can't. I need to think more because I need to narrow down a topic or at least a genre of things to talk about because you know me, I can talk about everything all day long. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, hey.
So,
And
just talking about everything. You don't have to narrow it down. Just as with YouTube. When
just
you
call it the
start,
everything channel.
just see what flies. I mean, you don't have to have everything in place when you start.
Right, that's true.
Yep.
Because
Um,
as you
and I
start, there is so much to learn to. So give yourself time to learn all the things around it, and just talk about whatever you want.
well, I feel like that I do so much better with Poppy. You know, even on my live streams on Friday night, for whatever reason, I feel much more comfortable. Even though Poppy doesn't really talk a lot, he's next to me and he's there, and I feel a lot more comfortable and like I can be more myself when he's
Yeah.
around. And so I want to get some more practice doing live streams by myself so that I can get more comfortable with it before I go that direction. And also, like you said last night, I probably need a new computer to start something like that. And that's going to be a struggle right here at Christmas time. And for us, Christmas time starts in October because we have 7 kids and 2 grandbabies and parents and
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I know. Well, I think I would love to be able to do a podcast with someone else. The co-hosting thing, I would love that. But as my life is right now, it's not possible because I
Right,
do
I get
work
it.
late at night.
Yeah.
So
Well, and that's the thing too is I know this is very selfish maybe, but I feel like I want something that's just mine. You know, when I started YouTube, it was supposed to be just mine.
Yeah,
But I think that I really think Poppy adds a different dimension to what I'm doing over here on the Granny channel anyway. And I think he adds to it, honestly. But I don't know. I think I just need to hash it out in my head a lot more.
I also think when it comes to you specifically that it's depending on what theme you land on at the end.
Mhm.
Some topics, I mean, the topic I choose for the podcast I'm doing right now, I can't just do that with anybody else
Yes, yes,
because I'm
Yeah.
talking being Swedish. So I am thinking though of eventually Pat Flynn he's a YouTuber and podcaster, and he has so many successful podcasts. And he has a method that he calls Hi Gina. I did the same thing as last time. I did a part where I did my tutorial first that I'm gonna put up later. No,
Yeah.
he has a method that he calls the ninja method. That's really smart. he goes to Facebook and search for groups. So for me, I would search for groups that are about Swedish heritage and groups like that. And then he contacts the admins and moderators of that group and ask them if tell them about his podcast and ask if they would be interested to be part of it in an interview.
Oh.
And if they say yes, you know that your podcast will be widely spread in that group because the moderator or the admin is going to be in the podcast.
Right.
Yep.
And he's also going to be telling his group, hey, this is what I'm doing. Make sure you listen.
Yeah.
And so on. And so on and so on.
And there are a couple of really interesting groups on Facebook. I don't want to go in and be a part of the group because I have so many groups on Facebook, but I am going to try to contact the admins and moderators of some of them eventually and tell them about my podcast and ask if anyone would be interested to be part of an interview when I talk about doing a couple about Swedish heritage.
I think it's fascinating. I binge listened to all of your episodes last night because I downloaded the Google podcast and they're fascinating. They're absolutely fascinating and I love them.
Yeah. Next one is coming up Monday is about Swedes' ambivalent relationship to alcohol or the drunken Swede.
Ambivalent?
Oh yeah. I can't go through it here. It's
okay.
A lot. It's a lot.
I can't wait to listen because I will. I'm going to listen to every second. Look, I was so tickled to listen to those. Honestly, they and I learned so much. You know, the Junta. Is that how you say it? Law of Junta.
Jante.
Jante.
Yeah. Law of Jante.
That was fascinating.
And I can't hear you.
Uh-oh.
What?
Can you hear me, DJ?
Yeah, I hear you.
Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah.
Okay. She's having some audio issues.
Yeah, but the law of gender is pretty interesting, I would say.
I didn't get that, DJ. I'm sorry.
The law of gender is pretty interesting.
Isn't it? It really is. And the not talking about yourself to me was fascinating.
Yeah.
And the not talking to strangers part was very interesting to me because my goodness, I can't imagine going to a grocery store and not smiling at someone or saying good morning or what, because here in the States, I think we consider that as polite.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean,
but over there, it's considered intruding, which is
That was a cultural shock for me.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I definitely found that interesting.
Right, and it, from what I understand, it was interesting to me that it was prominent in a lot of the Northern European. Can you hear us, Dia?
Yeah.
Because I I have a friend who
should be able to hear you now. Let's see.
Can you hear it?
Test.
What is going on here?
49, 31. Height.
think it's the best podcast.
It really is. And yeah, it was really kind of inspirational.
Well,
It was just
I
inspirational.
can't hear you.
Oh no.
What
but
is
yeah,
Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Hey,
You're giving her a thumbs
Tina
up
can
too.
hear me, but I
Yes.
don't think people in the.
But yeah, I definitely enjoyed it.
So,
Right. Oh, I was going to tell you, DJ, that I have a friend
Testing the speak.
who was born in Holland,
what
in the
is
Netherlands.
it?
Yeah.
And of course,
I
now I
don't
met
know why
him when I
can't
was
hear
only
you.
about 14,
Alright.
but he was not that way. And the countries are very close, you know, Sweden and Holland are
Yeah,
close.
yeah.
But maybe I think that was because he was exposed to the American culture when he was about 12. And probably just acclimated.
Yeah. I mean, I could definitely tell her that
Because I
the
know his
wrong
parents.
person is in a country that pick up that country's
I'm gonna
so.
leave for a second and come back.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah,
So
you
hard.
do. I mean, like, you.
Oh, and go ahead. I'm listening, honey.
What I would say is, if you're in a country for a long time, you start picking up the culture of that
Definitely. Definitely.
country.
Yeah, he ended up going back to Holland. Can you hear us now?
Now I can hear you. That was
Oh, good.
Okay, good.
I was just telling DJ how fascinating your podcast was to me because of the cultural differences in the we were talking about if we went to a grocery store and we couldn't smile at someone or say good morning or what have you. I think here in the US we consider that more polite than intrusive. But and I was telling DJ that I had a friend, and we've been friends our whole lives since we were both about 14. But he moved to the States from the Netherlands, Holland, and he wasn't like that. And we were discussing how it was probably because he was exposed to American culture when he was about 12. I met him. He could speak English as well as probably better than me. But he ended up going back to Holland and just did not thrive there. And he ended up marrying a girl from high school that we went to high school with and moving back to the States. And they just left about 3 months ago to move to Belgium. He got a job opportunity there with the company that he works at. And I wonder, of course, now they did go back and forth for years, you know, their whole marriage. They've been married 35 years or so. But I wonder if it's a culture shock for even him, having come from that region.
It probably is, because a lot of things are very different, but the Scandinavian countries in general are more different, I think, than the rest of Europe.
The rest of Europe. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Much because of the law of Jante, that is, and that is changing today. I just mentioned it in that podcast, but thanks to internet, that has less impact. You hear that beep in my computer?
I do hear that. What is that?
is going on? I don't know. I don't know. I have not just trolls in the chat. I have trolls in my computer too.
And your computer gremlins, that's what we call them down here.
I think that today's people that growing up in Sweden and Scandinavia today are not as impacted because of internet and because of
The world culture.
the world culture much more than it was
Well, let
when
me ask you this, and I know are supposed to be talking about formats, but I'm curious
fine.
if you see that more as a hindrance now that you live here, or do you feel like it's a comfort? The law of
It's, as I said in that episode, it is both a hindrance and it is a blessing in disguise because you are not as affected of the make it big mentality.
right. I remember you saying that.
You don't put as high expectations on yourself because of the law of Jante. But on the other hand, especially moving here in Sweden, where everybody was the same, moving here where it is more put yourself forward, make sure people notice you, tell people what you are good at, and also be the self-made American, and where you can start your own business. You can do that. Everybody should try to as a Swede. Those parts are really hard still for me. Like I said, it's still hard for me to say that I am good at something or tell somebody that I know how to do that or fix that or all of that. It's
it goes against your grain, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
So, for example, starting YouTube or starting a blog or a podcast where you have to be like go out there to get it. I think it's a hindrance for me that I'm not.
What about to the young people? The young people growing up in Sweden now, do you think that it's a benefit that maybe that the law of please say it again.
Jante.
Jante.
Yep.
Jante. The law of Jante. Was that okay?
Yeah.
But do you think that it's more beneficial for the young people coming up in Sweden not to be bound by that so much?
Yeah, I think so. Because I think the perfect would be a combination of the American and the Swedish culture.
I'm of the same opinion. Yes.
Because I think that the self-made and the need to succeed, that is the ruling way of thinking over here, also creates so much stress and so much pressure on people.
Well, and it also creates, and I'm going to speak from personal experience here. I have never been a person who needed a lot. I don't need a lot of money, even though me and Poppy are comfortable. I live very simply, and I enjoy that life. I don't need to be a multimillionaire for people to look at me. I enjoy, and honestly, this is the truth. Locally, I don't make friends very easily. It's easier for me to have friendships online where not a lot is required. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And my family are my friends.
Yeah.
You know, my family is everything to me, and I do for them. And God knows there's a lot of them. So, but
there still is a pressure, especially on young people.
And that's the part I was about to get to. I always felt pressure from my family, my parents, my brothers. My brothers are uber successful people. My parents are, they had working class jobs, but they were very smart, and they're very comfortable now in their old age. They will never have to worry about anything. And I always felt that pressure from them to, my dad used to tell me, find out what your assets are and use them.
Yep.
And I'm like, what assets? That
There is such a difference in the climate, and I think it mostly affects younger people. When you get up in
Yeah.
at our age, no matter where, Sweden or US, when you get to a certain age,
you don't care anymore.
No.
You learn to accept your lot in life.
And
Well, hello there, Jason Voorhees. You know what that noise is from, don't you?
no,
The
No.
Halloween
yeah,
movies.
no,
Mm.
I mean, at a certain age, you know that it doesn't matter. But
Yes.
younger people, but I think the ideal would be like somewhere in between.
Yes.
So you still learn because, and I think what's happening in US right now, it's very confusing.
Yeah.
Because on one hand you have this be your own boss, be an
Mhm.
entrepreneur, start your own business, be that mentality.
Mhm.
Be good at sports, be best at this, be best at that. On the other hand, we have
The give me
uh,
everything.
no, the participation trophy.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
that are such
So contradictory. Yeah.
Mm.
on one hand you are supposed to put yourself in a good position to make people notice you. I mean, on the other hand,
Don't
younger,
work hard, you'll get a trophy anyway.
yeah,
Yeah.
right now, and I think that is a relatively new phenomena in the US. It wasn't like that when I first moved here 18 years ago.
Right. You're
So
right.
that has changed recently, and that
Yeah.
gives very mixed signals to kids growing up today.
Well, I was just talking to Violet the other day, and she just turned 16, and she'll be graduating high school next year. And we were talking about, because I'm trying to encourage her to decide which college she wants to go to.
Yeah.
And she definitely wants to go, but she started crying. And I said, what's going on here? Why are you upset? She said, I don't want to leave home. I said, nobody said you had to leave home. You can go to the community college. I don't care where you go. And I'll tell you another thing. When you get that diploma, it doesn't matter the name on it as long as it's yours and it says bachelor. That's all that matters. Doesn't matter what college it's from, unless you're going to be an attorney or maybe a doctor.
Yeah.
And and she doesn't know what she wants to do with her life. I said, you don't have to know right now.
No.
Just go to college, take some classes, see what you like. If you want to be in music, be in music. She's very adept at languages. Go that route. She likes the thought of being a therapist. She's got a lot of things to choose from, and just figure out what she likes best for now.
That is also different for kids growing up today compared to when we grew up. When I grew up back in Sweden, I didn't even finish high school.
Oh my.
I was a high school dropout
Mm.
because I decided I don't know what I want to do with my life. This is not I don't know what I want to do. So I quit, and I said to my parents, I'm going to quit. Said, do what you want as long as you get the job. You can't
Yeah.
quit and do nothing.
Right.
Get yourself a job and you can do whatever you want.
Oh,
So
that's
I gave
fair.
myself a full-time job,
Mm-hmm.
which I was maybe 17 when I dropped
Mm.
out. So I got a full-time job. At 18, I moved in my own apartment for the
Yeah.
first, and I lived that life for many years. When I was 23, maybe 24, I decided, okay, now I know what I want to do. I want to be a teacher. So I went back. They have something in Sweden called komvux. It's high school for adults,
Okay.
Mm.
only for adults. So I went there. I got my high school diploma. Then I went to college to become a teacher. But I had, say that I was 17, so I had 7 years where I was working full time, living my own life, had my own apartment, and figured out what I wanted to do.
Right.
Today, kids can't do that.
It's more
Because
difficult because I think a lot of kids today, especially in the US, they don't have the family support that's needed to be able to do that. I think it's so much.
today, maybe because of COVID and the change in the work market, maybe
Yeah.
you can find a full time job and do that instead.
Back in our day, they were a dime a dozen. I know.
Yes.
I worked at the phone company. I had an amazing job when I was 18 years old. I went in there, I took the test, and I was hired. And I had that job for, probably 4 or 5 years until I had my oldest daughter, and then I quit. But you know, I think things were easier when I was growing up, as far as the job market and the price of. I mean, I remember how much I paid for my first apartment. It was $310 a month, and it was a 2-bedroom apartment.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, but
now,
I mean, so it's harder for kids to do that today if they don't want to. And I mean, I quit high school. I didn't even finish high school when I decided, no, this is not for me.
Right.
So,
Mm.
and back
and
then
see,
it was,
you know, Pia, if I would have uttered the words in my house, Dad, I don't want to go to high school anymore. He'd have told me, get out, get out.
Mhm.
Cannot live here and not finish school.
That is the difference between what I mean when I say I grew up with the law of Jante. It wasn't pressure to go to school.
Wow.
It wasn't the pressure to get
To
a
make the best
successful
grade.
job and to get a successful job and start climbing the ladder.
The ladder. Right,
That
right.
was, and if I look at my I have 4 brothers, and my youngest brother went to college. The other 3, none of them actually went to college. And 2 of them has, no, one of them has climbed really high in his company.
Right.
And the other 2 has decent jobs that they love. One is an electrician, and one is working with people in group home. He's an aide in a group home. People.
Mm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, there wasn't, when we grew up, wasn't that you had to go to school to succeed. I mean, you could succeed without that pressure. And even for you back, I mean, we're the same age. For you, there was this pressure
Yes,
to go,
a lot.
and that shows the difference between the succeed mentality in the US and the jante mentality in the Scandinavian
I'll
countries?
tell you the extent of the pressure and the judgment in my family. I was the black sheep and probably still am to some degree because of the choices I made to live more simply and not be uber successful. And yes, it was a choice. It was a choice.
Hmm.
Maybe not a conscious choice, but it was a choice.
The
The same with me, Jason. My first job, because we weren't in any, what's going on here? We weren't in any way like rich or anything like that in my family. So, and when I grew up, my mom was a stay at home mom when we were small, and my dad worked as a musician. So, when I grew up, we were 5 kids. We didn't have much. So,
Right.
when I was 13 and still was in elementary school, because in Sweden, what's elementary is up to grade 9 in
Okay.
Sweden. So, when I was 13, I decided I had interest that cost money. I was in a theater group and we toured sometime during the summer and did things like that. So I needed money that I knew my parents didn't have. So I
Right.
started working on weekends at 13 in a grocery store.
See, and I wasn't allowed to have a job until I graduated high school because
Yeah.
my focus had to be on my schoolwork, period. That was just the structure. It's crazy. But
Yeah.
and I know not everybody's family was like mine either.
I think it's more common here than in Sweden.
Right, definitely. Well, and that was when I told you I made the choice to live more simply. I made the choice to be a stay-at-home mom, knowing full well that if I chose not to go to work, we were going to have to sacrifice.
Mhm.
And I was willing to make that sacrifice because I felt like my job, I chose to have kids. My job is to raise them. I'm not paying somebody else to do it.
But that is also, I mean, a lot of women chose to be stay-at-home mom, and their husband is working or whatever. But that is still not enough. You have all this. Just go online and see all these places where they have work from home as a stay-at-home mom.
Yes.
You still need to have a career, even as
Even as
stay.
a house manager, babysitter,
Mhm.
nurse,
And
and all of those jobs.
And this is one of the things I would talk about later in my podcast series about when I talk about equality. For example, in Sweden, when you get when you get a child, you have 18 months full pay.
What?
Out of these 18 months, 6 months are reserved for the dad,
Oh,
for the partner. So you very often see stay-at-home dads. Some couples choose to split it even, so they do 9 and 9. Some do 12 and 6, and there's all variations. But
right.
you can't use all the 18 for the mother. The mother can use 12 and then 6, or one
the
of them
dad.
can use 12 and the other has to use 6 if you want to have the full 18.
Well, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So people are home, and then if you get the second child, you get even more time. I'm
Oh,
not sure about the numbers now. A lot
sure.
have changed since I moved. So before I do that episode, I have to do new research to figure out how it is today. But
Right.
it's so much more common, and I follow a guy on YouTube that has moved from the US to Sweden, and he did an episode where he talked about how surprised he was to see all these dads with strollers.
Oh,
Nice.
but that's a good thing. That is such a good thing.
Yeah. But then he found out about the thing with parental leave, how that works in Sweden, that 6 months is dedicated to the dads. And that had made a big change in how you think about who's staying home with the dad. It's the person
Yeah.
that it fits best for, and that have the work that it fits best for.
Well,
Because-
and the reason we chose for me to stay home is because I wasn't as educated as Poppy was and did not have the ability to make the kind of money it took to support all of us. I wasn't in that situation. So
that is never the question, since you have your pay not from
Right.
the workplace, you have your pay from the state. And these are one I would talk about taxes too, because we pay much higher taxes. But
Yes.
when you sit down and really look at the money, it's not that much more expensive to live in Sweden than in the US, because what you forget here is everything else you have to pay out of pocket in the US that is included in the taxes in Sweden.
and you guys get health care over there, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you get that family leave, which is wonderful.
Free school up to college. Even college is free.
What?
Yep. Free college. So I can still go to college in Sweden online for free because I still Swedish.
See, and yeah.
So those
And then you have politicians here in the States saying, we can't do that here.
we can't,
There's
because
ways.
there are reasons why
There
we
are
can't.
ways.
Yeah, but it is a long change. It's a lot of things that have to change. And
Definitely.
a lot of this actually come back to the law of Jante when you really think about it, because the mentality in Sweden has always, that's why we accept the high taxes, because it has always been the mentality that look out for the group first.
Gotcha.
That is part of it.
Oh, when I was listening to your podcast last night, you played in one of the episodes, you played some music that was very reminiscent to me of some of the music I heard on, what's that Disney program with Elsa and Anna? Frozen. Frozen. And it wasn't the same music, but I could hear a hint of Frozen in the music. And I thought to myself, I need to ask Pia the real story of Frozen.
Yeah. All the music I use in the episodes are either, if it was one of the earlier ones, I used only traditional Swedish songs.
I thought so.
Then there isn't too much on. I use music from Epidemic Sound, and there isn't too much traditional Swedish. But then I have found several artists that do music with Scandinavian undertones. So that's what I'm using too. So it's all very Nordic sounding.
Yes. And it's beautiful. Beautiful. But I thought, I think that story is based on the story of the Ice Princess.
It's probably H.C. Andersen.
Yeah.
Like The Mermaid and all of this.
Yeah.
Danish author. H.C. Andersen.
I see.
So I'm not gonna get into him, but I'm gonna do an episode about what I grew up with, which is Astrid Lindgren, who wrote Pippi Longstocking and other books.
Oh, yes. Yeah, we talked about that once.
that also tells a lot about Sweden. Her children's book. The children's do what are often very naughty, and they are doing whatever they want, and they, hi Ghana, welcome.
Hey,
Ghana,
Ghana.
hi.
So her books from back then, 50s and 60s, tell a lot about Sweden. A children's book like that would never fly over here, I don't think.
Not anymore. I read it. I read. Well, they were probably English
Translations of
translate. Yes, but I remember reading some of those books when I was in school, young elementary school, and they were fascinating to me because the kids got away with so much stuff that I would never ever have been allowed to get away with. You know, just running the countryside, you know, and finding little things to get into, and I wasn't allowed to do all that.
that's Pippi Longstocking, and she has
Yeah.
other, Emil, for example, who
Hmm.
in a couple of episodes he gets drunk. He's 9 years old and he gets drunk because, I mean, there are
That's
it's
hilarious.
they ate the fermented apples and they got drunk, and I mean that wouldn't fly here.
Uh,
And Ghana, let me just say to you, I got your email. I haven't had time today to look at it. We've been out all day, and then I had to get Sis in bed, and then I had to do this. And I might not have time tomorrow either because we have therapy with her, and then there is a woman here where we moved to that's have started up a Facebook group for people that are new in this area, and we're going to meet at the restaurant tomorrow night.
Oh, how
They're
nice.
cool.
Really fun. So this weekend, Ghana, I will get to it.
I was
So-
busy today. It was a terribly. Today I got to. It was so much fun. We went to the middle school football game because my son, he is a percussionist in the band,
Mhm.
and it was his first game ever that he got to play in the band with. And my daughter had band practice after school, so she just walked over to the game after she was finished. Well, she ended up playing in the band with the middle school kids and kind of mentoring them a little bit. And it was so fun to see both of my kids playing
Yes.
together in the same band because
Mm.
that's not going to happen very often because once Violet graduates high school,
Yeah.
Murphy will start high school the following year. So they won't ever be in the same band together. So I got video of it and I'm so happy that I did
Nice.
because it was just, I got a little verklempt.
We actually did something great today. They have here something called the senior center for people that live here, and they have, it's a new built place. Everything is tip top notch, and they have chair yoga. So today was the second time we went there for chair, because that is something that my sister can be part of.
Oh, good. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, because she doesn't have to get up. She can do it in the chair.
A couple of things they do standing up, holding on to the chair, but she does what she can. So this was the second time we went, and they have a nice little gym you can use there. So where they have treadmill and those elliptical, and they have bikes and all of that. So we went first and did
That's
a little
very nice.
in the gym because she can sit on the bike and we can do the other stuff.
Oh,
And then
okay.
we went to chair yoga. So that was really nice.
Did
loved
she enjoy it?
Yep, she loved it.
Good.
Nice.
Good.
And it's so lucky because she goes to therapy Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And they have share yoga Tuesday and Thursday.
Oh, that's
Like
very
they have
fortunate.
other things we would like to do too on other days. But the days she has therapy, we can't go there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Tuesday, they not only have the chair yoga, then they have built, instead of having a little I almost said fika room now. A little room where they have coffee and everything. It looks like a 50s diner. They have the booths, they have the
Oh, nice.
jukebox, they have everything. And
Oh wow.
every Tuesday they make milkshakes. So you get a milkshake in there, in these traditional milkshake glasses, and it's such a neat place. I mean, really, we're so happy we found this. And
Yeah.
we happen to live just outside the city limits of our city. So we didn't get it for free, but we paid $100 for a year for everybody in the household. So now
That is a bargain.
Oh, yeah.
it's
Oh,
really, really nice. They have such nice things. They have, before the uh, chair yoga on Thursday, they have Zumba, they have regular yoga, they have a room for pool, they have crafting classes, they have all kinds of things.
oh, that
Really,
sounds wonderful.
really. Yeah.
You know, we have a senior citizen here that I thought maybe I would check out, but I think they just rent it out for events now. I don't even think that anybody participates very much since the COVID thing started
Yeah.
because
Up
they're
and running and
petrified of it.
all new. It's built like 2 years ago. And the city has put a lot of money in it, and it's really top notch. They're still building outside, doing more things. And they have, the thing is, the yoga and the, what's it called? Not the tennis, the new thing that everybody plays.
The racquetball?
Not racquetball.
Uh,
Uh, oh, never
I
mind.
know a lot of new stuff.
It's at the same time on Tuesday and Thursday, so we can't do both. But it's really an active center, and then they have people playing games and playing cards and playing. I mean, it's really. But
So the whole community can use it,
pickleball,
and that's
yeah.
great.
Thank you, Anna. Pickleball.
Oh,
So,
is that what it is? Pickleball?
oh, it's so
Hmm.
fun, and they have 4 or 5 pickleball courts that you can use.
Oh wow.
Nice.
I'll be right back, guys.
That's
Uh,
fine. So I really enjoyed it. The chair yoga was perfect for sis. That
yeah,
was
that was definitely
excellent.
good to help. Yeah.
Yeah. So Ghana, how is life with you? No, Gina, not ping pong. But I think when I think about it, they might have a ping pong table in there too. Yeah, they do. But this is outside.
Nice.
Pickleball is like a combination between badminton, ping pong, and tennis,
Yeah.
I would say. You have a little wooden racket, and let me see if I can find some pickleball here.
Whatever the walls raises swim at all.
Here, let me share this. I found them playing pickleball. I'm not sharing audio, but
Alright.
why did that not work? Share screen, pickleball, share, add to stream, and here we go. This is pickleball.
Nice.
Hey, I'm Matt Goebel, and I'm here to talk to you guys about
So this is pickleball.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
It's
you can't let it hit the
really-
ground.
Yeah, you can when one hit. That's fine.
Oh, okay. Oh,
So this is pickleball. So,
that looks
but
like
that
fun.
they have
Cool.
at the same time as they have the share yoga, they have lessons in pickleball. So we can't do both.
Right, right.
So
Hmm.
Oh, that looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
it is absolutely.
Oh, now Gina said ping pong. I like some ping pong ball.
Yeah,
When I
they
was
have
a
at the senior center too, but
when I was a kid, we had a ping pong table in the garage, and
so
my brothers and I would play ping pong by the hour. It was crazy.
Yep.
Nice.
Yep.
I enjoyed that.
And we used to play when we were a group. You walked around the table, and if you missed the ball or hit it out, you had to sit down. So
Yes.
people were out of the game.
Rotating in and out.
Yep, running around the table. And when you were just two left and you still had to run, it was really like, but it was so much fun.
Yeah. Nice.
And then when I was a teenager, my dad got a pool table, and I learned how to play pool. Then I broke my leg in 4 places in a terrible car accident. And I ended up using that pool table to learn how to walk again.
Oh, that's good.
It was that was tough. But
Well, you were lucky. You were
Yes.
lucky. You,
very
my sister-in-law, that was
Yeah.
car accidents,
yeah.
2 of them.
I was very, very lucky.
She was in a long coma both times.
Oh jeez. That's
Mhm.
heartbreaking. Especially because I was telling you about our little friend Julia, my daughter's friend that was hit by a car, and knowing what that's like and watching that recovery, if there ever is one, is just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she was so lucky because she was young when that happened to her, and her brain can create new pathways and try to do things in a new way. But I think
That's what happened to my sister. She was 25.
oh
She
God.
had the first accident, and after that, she started to come back, and her brain, other half of the brain, took over some functions, and she
Right.
got pretty well back to normal. Then she
Mhm.
had the second accident and hurt the other half of the brain. The
Oh.
other side. So then it was nowhere to go after that. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
Damn shame.
oh, yep, damn shame. First time was all her fault. She was driving, she had a sports car, she was driving too fast. It was raining and she aquaplaned, went over the centerfold, and ended up under a truck
Oh
in her
dear God.
sports car. So it was second time she actually was a passenger, and the UPS truck slammed into the passenger side of the car.
See, I was a passenger in my accident too. And I was very lucky. Not only to have my life, but to have my leg, or vice versa.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because it could have been a lot uglier. And it was
Yeah.
bad. I mean, for me, I was a very vain young 16-year-old girl. And I like to put on makeup every morning and wear nice clothes to school with my high heels because I'm short. I always wanted to be as tall as everybody else. So the day my parents started letting me wear high heels, that was the thing for me. Now they weren't high heels, but they were,
High.
you know. And so when I broke my leg,
I'm short too. I'm 5. Well, now I guess I'm 5.0. I used to be 5'1", and I used platforms back in
did
the.
you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're the same height then because they say I'm 5'1", but I probably lack 5'1" by about a quarter of an inch. So
Yeah, I'm sure I have shrunk nowadays. So
it happens, you know.
you know
Grab-
what, guys? I'm actually thinking of closing up today
Okay.
because
Right.
give me
Well,
time.
I think it's kind of a treat that you came on this evening because I honestly
Yeah.
wasn't expecting to see you.
No, but I thought it was nice what we did on Tuesday. That I did part first that I can edit out as a standalone video, and then I will leave the. I'm thinking I didn't do that last time, but I'm thinking that maybe I don't know if I should edit out. No,
The
I can.
conversation part.
No, if that I edit out on the uploaded video, but on
Okay.
the live stream, I can just put timestamps where the tutorial ends and the discussion starts.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
One just want to go look at that, and I can link it. That's probably what I should do.
yeah. Why
Yeah.
not?
So,
Yeah.
okay, guys. So I am gonna end this and go to edit. And
Then
Right.
let's see.
I'm taking the day off. I'm not doing anything tonight except going to bed.
I saw that you had uploaded. Was it today?
Yeah, this morning.
The steak.
The pork roast. Yeah. A Boston
The-
butt.
That was today.
Yeah. That was, well, yeah. Yeah.
Now I can't find my music here. Let's
Oh,
see.
I'm going to try very hard to upload quite a lot in October and see what happens.
Okay, guys. I think I found.
Okay.
I found my song. So
Awesome.
let's turn the music up, and I wish you all a good night.
Good night, Tia. Take care,
Night,
DJ. Good night.
And to everybody in the chat, Gina Bina, Ghana, I don't know if Gamer is still here. Be kind to each other and never stop learning.
Broken road, that's the only one you know. You better run out, truth or dare. Get me out, take me anywhere but here. Oh, anywhere but here. Wanting something good to come, waiting for things to run away from. Are you just hiding? Yeah, walking into the fire, talking like you never die, like you're immortal. You try to stay awake, these walls you can't escape. Here's one for the lonely hearts, for the ones that fear the dark. You better run out of here. Bet you can't look the other way. Here's one for the broken road.